Hello class, welcome to the next segment in the week 7 material, and in this segment we're going to take a look at how we can write information to a file, again using a Python program. Now, this is probably going to be shorter than the previous segment, but there are several important points that I do want to emphasize as we go through this. But this is sort of like what we had before. Again, we use the open function, and we have the name of a file, and we also have this 1 to 2 character sequence, again 1 to 2 character string that tells the computer how we actually want to open this file. So here the name of our file is called output.txt, and this W tells the computer that we want to open this file for the purposes of writing information to it. And also, just like before, when we have a variable set equal to the open function, what we're basically doing is we're creating a variable inside of our Python program that basically tells the computer whenever the computer sees this variable, it knows we're talking about this file name that we put in the open function here. So you can see how this variable is associated with this specific open function. That way, when the computer sees this variable, it knows we're talking about something that's related to the file that we've given the open function. And when writing information to a file, the process is actually very simple. Unlike some other programming languages, this is actually very simple in Python. So to actually write information to the file, you type the variable that is holding on, as the Python variable that is more or less holding on to your file name. So again, that is in this variable called pointer. And again, having this variable set equal to the open function basically tells the computer wherever it sees this variable called pointer, again, what's on the left-hand side here, it knows that I'm talking about the file given by this name, the name of the file that I put in the corresponding open function. So I take that Python variable, and then I say that Python variable dot write, and then whatever I put inside the parentheses here, it will actually write that information or write that string to this particular the Python file that is associated with this particular variable. Again, that variable is just defined up here, and that's set equal to the open function, and within the open function is the name of the file that I actually want to write the information to. Now, once I'm done writing information to the file, and this is something very, very important, and I'll even demonstrate what can happen if you forget this last step. You also need to tell the computer, using this command on line 5, so again, same variable that I had up here on line 4, same variable, and then dot close, and don't forget the parentheses there either. So whenever you're done writing information to the file, make sure you run this, have this command in your Python program somewhere. What this basically does is it tells the computer, I'm done writing information to that file, and you are now welcome to display it on your file navigation system. So if we first just want to demonstrate what this is all going to do. So this is going to open a file called output.txt for the purposes of writing to it. And I can give you sort of a sneak preview of what's going on here. So you'll see that this time my Python program is called w7p2.py. Now, you'll notice that I don't have a file called output.txt in the same folder as my Python program that's trying to access the file. Whenever you're reading information from a file, then the file must already exist. If you're writing information to a file, then the file does not need to exist. So even though there's no file called output.txt in the same folder as my Python program, it will actually create the file, and then it will write the contents to it. Again, it will write the contents by running what's on line 4 here. And then once it hits the pointer.close, it'll say, okay, we're done writing information to the file. We are now able to display it in our file navigation system. In this case, since I'm using a Mac, that file navigation system is just simply Finder. So if we run this program, I'll just go ahead and do that. And you can see nothing appears in the console, but all the action happened elsewhere. And you'll see now I have a file called output.txt, and you can see if I open this, I'll go ahead and close that since we're done with it. And when I open this, you'll see I get hello world, which is the string that matches up with what we have here. Now, something else I want to demonstrate that's also kind of important. So again, I'll close out of that. Now, I mentioned earlier that when writing information to a file, this file does not need to already exist. However, If this file already exists, the simple action of running this command on line 2 will actually erase everything in the file once this command is run. That is, if this file already exists. So if there's already a file called output.txt, just running this command on line 2, this open output.txt, open it for the purposes of writing information to it. Just that command alone will actually erase all the contents of output.txt if that file already exists. And we can see this file already exists. And just to demonstrate that, I will go ahead and run this, and you will see my file is now empty. So, something you really want to be careful about. When you're writing information to a file, make sure, if there's already a file with this name, make sure the contents of that file is not something you will cry or lose sleep over if the computer deletes it. So, with that said, I would not recommend trying to use this on an important system file that your computer needs to function properly. So, just something to keep in mind. If the file does not exist, that is, if this file name does not exist, then the computer will create that file for you. But if it does already exist, then just the process of running what's on line 2 here will in fact erase the contents of that file. So if we want to, we can actually go ahead and reset this to sort of go back to normal. So again, just the same file that we sort of started with. And now I'll demonstrate what happens if you forget the close command that appears on line 5. So here I'm going to run the same program again, and you'll see the contents disappear once more. And this time the reason why is because, yeah, I wrote information to the file, but I didn't tell the computer it was ready to display that information in our file navigation system, again in this case Finder. By forgetting the close command, I did not tell the computer that, hey, we can actually display the contents of this file in the file navigation system, because actually what's going on here is the computer still thinks that we're trying to write information to the file, so it actually hasn't even saved the contents yet. So you can sort of think of this command on line 5 here as being the Python command save function for writing information to a file. So we're saying whatever file name we're storing in this variable called, in this case, pointer, we're saying we're writing information to that, now save that file so that we can actually look at it. And again, very important that you include that command there in order for things to work properly. Now, you can also put multiple writes in the same program. So here I say, I could say something like this, and we can go ahead and show you what that actually looks like. So you can see there's hello world, something we get from the first write, and here we get hello class, something we get from the second write. Usually a best practice to employ is to use just a single write command. So whatever information you want to actually write to the file in question, it's usually best to use just a single write command to accomplish that, if at all possible. You can absolutely put multiple write commands in the in your program here. Just make sure that you write everything to the file before you run this close command here. So just a few things to keep in mind, and again, I'll reiterate those because they are so important. If this file already exists, just running what's on line 2 here, running that and that alone will just immediately delete anything that is contained within this file name. If it does not exist, then the computer will automatically create the file for you. And another point that we mentioned, usually best to use a single write. And then finally, don't forget the close command, otherwise your computer is going to start behaving oddly because it's not sure whether you're done writing information to the file or not, and you may not get the results that you're really looking for if you forget this close command that appears on line 5 here. And something else I'll also go ahead and mention, there's nothing special about this variable name. So I could also call this X, and I will still get the exact same results that I had before. Doesn't matter whether I call that X pointer or anti-disestablishmentarianism, that also will work just fine. But that's going to do it for this segment on writing information to files. And in the next segment, we're going to actually shift to something entirely different and talk about something called a try except finally block. So with that, I will see you all in the next segment.